So now, please welcome the official, non-official, non-sponsor of the Savannah Bananas, but a big fan. Please welcome John Fletcher.
Well, thank you, my friend Jesse Cole, owner of the Savannah Bananas. There are no hidden tricks with today's 15 on Fridays with Fletch. Now, about our special guest. Brian Galke is known as the Decoding Detective. He's not from Dakota, it's decoding. His company is called Subtle Skills because subtle skills can make a huge difference. Just look past the 21 years that he spent in prison. He was a vendor for an IT company, not a prisoner, but he did learn a lot of valuable information. With a little bit of observation, he can tell your mood, how well you do or don't like him, and how receptive you're going to be. So let's go with his favorite statement, which is relationships are built when you present to the person instead of pitch your product. So please welcome America's #1 facial analysis expert, the Decoding Detective, Brian Galke. Brian, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, it's great to see you again.
This is wonderful. You did such a great job at the HEB Chamber of Commerce the other day. Everybody's still talking about you.
Good.
Tell us about how you started at Face Reader's presentation and you hope to bust him.
Sure. So 2010, friend came in from out of town. She said, hey, I'm in town. Let's catch up. Let's go to dinner. I show up at the restaurant, order a glass of wine. And then she calls, she says she's not going to make it. I'm like, oh, here we go. And she's like, no, you got to come to the trade show. I met this speaker. He's absolutely amazing. It's going to be worth it for you to drive over there. And this was back in the days before Uber. And so me living in Uptown, having to go to downtown Dallas and like deal with the parking there, I'm like, no, I'm not going. And she finally convinced me to go. And I thought, you know what? This guy ruined my night. I'm going to ruin his. I'm going to kind of prove this guy's a fraud. And being in sales, I've read all kinds of books on everything from Barnum statements, which are generic statements that apply to everybody. Oh, you've had a hard time in life. I've read books on basic showmanship, mentalists, you name it. And they'll say like, oh, I can see that one of your family members had a darkness in their chest. Well, the reason that they say those generic things are you can have a heart problem, you could have lung cancer, you could have, emphysema, whatever it is, that's all in the chest. So there's these statements that you kind of fill people in, or you start it and other people fill in the gap. And I thought for sure that's what this guy was going to do, because when she told me he can read faces, I thought, whatever, because I'm a huge fan of like books on body language, statement analysis, you name it. And I'd never heard of reading faces. So I assumed it's like reading palms. It's got to be a carnival trick, you name it. And so I just went guns blazing. I was going to destroy this guy and I couldn't do it.
Wow, that's incredible. Well, tell us about Mac Fulfer. You met him,
Sure.
y'all worked alongside each other. He's the guy that wrote the book Amazing Faces. What are
Right.
the 3 most important things that you guys kind of collaborated on?
So I was a student. After he won me over that night in 2010, I spent all of 2011 driving from Dallas to Fort Worth, 45 minutes each way, twice a month, to do group studying with him. And it just helped me in both my personal and my professional life. So I just kept going back to him. So there's a handful of people that are certified by him, but I'm one of the few in the world that actually teaches it. There's several people that learned it to use it for their own benefit. And there's nothing wrong with that. But he retired during COVID and I started speaking. So now when people reach out to Mac, that's actually how you and I met.
Yeah.
Was you reached out to Mac. Mac doesn't speak anymore. He refers it to me. And I've just gone, and I lived lucky enough that, he's 45 minutes away. So we still have lunch every other month.
Right. Oh, that's amazing. It's been said that somebody can size someone up in 7 seconds.
Right.
What do we need to know about those critical 7 seconds?
That there is no right or wrong facial feature. It's just figuring out what do we have in common and what's different. And the analogy I like to give them when I'm talking is it's like going to another country. I can demand that you speak English, or I can learn how to speak your language where I'm going. And usually when you try to speak somebody else's language, they try and speak yours at the same time, but we don't do that nearly enough.
All right. And your website talks about, you have a great quote, that relationships are built when you present to the person instead of pitch your product. Tell us about that.
Sure. So I was in sales for 14 years. I worked my way up. I started as a sales engineer. Then I became a corporate trainer, then account manager, director. And my final position in corporate America was regional vice president of sales. But what I learned is the old school method was, oh, just talk about why we're the best person and go on and on about your product. And that doesn't work anymore. People want to know now, have you researched me? How do you know my product is right for me? Have you looked at things from my perspective, or are you just pitching your product? And there's nothing wrong with what's called a sales script, which is writing out your presentation. But a sales script is so you can memorize things about the product. When you learn to personalize it, you make it about the person who's going to purchase it from you. And truthfully, if you're in a position where somebody's not a good fit, you should be able to tell that person that you're not the right person for them.
Well,
And that's where it's learning to personalize it. Yeah.
there was a guy named Jason Jennings that did consulting for radio stations, and his whole concept was tell me, sell me. And he said, if you spend enough time asking questions, the prospect will eventually reveal how to sell to them.
Absolutely. So let's just use two different analogies. Is if I work at a car dealership, sales scripts I learned there don't work at a motorcycle dealership, because I'm not going to ask like, oh, is your family going to ride with you? You know, I mean, they're both transportation, but they're so dynamically different in what they're going for. Most people going to ride a motorcycle, it's about the person driving it. Maybe somebody will go on the back, but you know, very rarely do you ever see like a sidecar on a motorcycle. But they're both sales and they're both transportation sales. But it's a completely different experience for those two buying situations.
When we approach somebody new, what are the first things that we should be looking for?
I always look for eyebrows first because number one, eyebrows lead to eye contact. And that's a lost art this day and age. These lovely devices, these smartphones, smartwatches, they connect us to the world, but they disconnect us from each other. And when you look at eyebrows, eyebrow height can tell you how long somebody takes to make a decision. And then the three basic eyebrow shapes tell you how do people want to be presented the information. So we learned about this at the Chamber of Commerce, but the higher the eyebrow is, the more it takes someone time to make a decision. So if you imagine data racing down somebody's forehead to get into their eye, the higher the eyebrow is, the more time they need. And I know what people are thinking, no, that's all genetics. Yes, you're 60% what you inherited from your genetic code, but from the minute you're born, something known as epigenetics comes into play. And that is, how did things from the outside world impact you down to a DNA level? And so our faces are constantly changing. In my presentations and my training, I show a picture of me 20 years apart and how much my own face has changed based on the 43 muscles in the face.
And you can pretty well tell, for example, just looking at somebody, if they're an optimist or pessimist, right?
Absolutely. There are little things like we see it all the time. Like when we see somebody whose mouth is downturned, well, it's from frowning a lot.
Yeah.
So when you're talking to somebody like that, well, if they frown a lot, they don't expect things to always work out. So the nice thing is they're pleasantly surprised when they do, but they're not hurt if they don't. Now, somebody whose mouth angles up and they're always smiling, when something works out, well, that was their expectation. When it doesn't, they're distraught. So there is no right or wrong method. It's just how does the person perceive it? And then the other thing that you can look at is eye angles. So when you're looking at somebody's eye, if it angles up, they want to hear about the upside of things. If it angles down, they're worried about the potential downsides. So you can look and figure out, again, like when I was in technology sales, if their eyes angled up, I talked about why we were the best, vendor in the space, what were the features, what were the benefits. If it was angled down, I addressed the downsides that they could be concerned about. And I'd say things like, this isn't the first generation of our product. This is generation blah, blah, blah. This is what we learned from our failures and feedback from our customers. So you're still presenting the same piece of technology, but you're adapting it to the person and how they think.
In addition to the eyes, response around the mouth, or what else? What else helps us to determine how receptive or how closed off somebody is?
It's everything. So it's a combination. You should learn faces first because people are disconnected by digital media right now. So you want to keep your attention in this zone because we're not used to it. There was a study I quoted at the Chamber of Commerce, and that was 53% of people interviewing out of high school and college at companies in 2023, 800 companies were surveyed. 53% of them couldn't make eye contact during a job interview. So you should start with faces and learn that. Then after that, you should learn body language. And the reason why you learn body language second is action has to take place before you can do anything. With faces, you can go look up people on LinkedIn, social media, and try and figure out, all right, how would I talk to this person? So it's like showing up and seeing a long lost friend. But body language, you have to do something, and then I understand what that movement means. So for example, in sales, when people lean closer, it's because they're interested. When they don't like something, we create distance from things. There's all kinds of things that are going on all the time. So on just the face alone, there's over 150 different combinations of facial features to look at. And then you can start paying attention to body language. And there is no right or wrong in either skill. It's about putting those skills together that makes you very valuable.
So when you're talking to somebody in a sales situation and they cross their arms, it doesn't necessarily mean 100% of the time that they're turning you out. Isn't there a certain amount of the time that that's just a comfortable
Yeah.
position for them?
It could, yeah, they could have back pain. It could be cold in the room. It's the speed of how fast. So I'll step a little bit away from my desk. If we're talking and I slowly cross my arms, that's not that bad. Here, let me angle my camera down just a little bit. But if we're talking and I immediately cross my arms, then it's a bad sign. So it's about the speed of which it happens, not the action itself. And that's what a lot of body language books don't cover is what's called a baseline. And somebody may, like, for example, I stick my hands in my pockets a lot when I'm talking. And it's just that's what my normal is. Well, if it wasn't my norm, I'm suddenly sticking my hands in my pockets, then it's something to pay attention to. But a lot of times people get that wrong. But I'll tell you one with a face that people don't know about, except for people like you who've been in and seen my training, is the lower lid in our eye. When we're open to hearing the subject, our eyes are like a camera lens, and the wider they are, our eyelids are rounded. But if you're talking to someone and suddenly it flattens out, they're trying to squeeze you out, but not tell you what they're doing. So you just flatlined when you see those lower lids go straight, and that means you have an opportunity to address the concern, but if you don't get to it, they're going to move on.
All right. And so tell us about where is that kind of where we learn with the eyelids, the lower eyelids, about how to speed up or slow down the presentation?
No, that's more of the eyebrow height.
Okay.
So you'll know based on the eyebrow height how much time you have their attention. So the closer the eyebrow is to the eye, the faster you have to get to the point. So again, going back to if you imagine data racing down the forehead to get into the eye, the higher the eyebrow, imagine eyebrows are speed bumps. I can only go so fast, I got to go over the speed bump and try and speed up. Well, if the speed bump's right here, it's like putting a speed bump by a stop sign. Everybody can race down the street and they only have to slow down at the very end.
Wow. Okay. So tell us, as we've got a couple minutes left, tell us what else you'd like to share about face reading, body language, et cetera, that helps us to be more successful.
Sure. It's the number one skill. You can go and look. The World Economic Forum, LinkedIn said emotional skills, AKA soft skills, emotional intelligence skills, sorry, AKA soft skills are going to be the in-demand skill. Because if not, AI can replace and do other things, but it can't replace you being in the room. So a year or two ago, if you wanted a high-paying job, you want to keep your job, you learned about AI prompting, things of that nature. You went and became a coder. Now, it's what can you do to be present and special in a room that separates you from AI and automation. So you need to be learning every single skill you can. Pick up books on networking, pick up books on body language. One of my favorite books is right here. This is Janine Driver's book. It's called You Say More Than You Think. And that is, what does your body language say about you when you enter a room? Because that's going to be just as important as reading the other person's. If you come in with your shoulders down like, hey, I'm so excited to be here today, nobody's going to believe you. And if you look uncomfortable and you don't look confident, we can see that in your body language.
Tell us just real quick, we got a few seconds left, about your flashcards.
Sure. So the thing that helped me the most is the books are good, but the flashcards were the fastest way that I learned. And so what it is just like anything else, there's like you can buy a book or you can buy the flashcards. And the flashcards these are actually for my mentor who did them. But what you do is you find a facial feature and then you flip it over and go, okay, now what does the facial feature mean? This is what helped me the most because the book overwhelmed me at first if I didn't have one-on-one coaching. And you can find out about all the books I recommend and everything else if you go to getthecheatsheet.com. That'll take you to the page that has the books, the flashcards, everything. Or if you just want the flashcards, you can go to gettheflashcards.com.
Oh, that's great. Brian, thank you so much. We've been watching 15 on Fridays with Fletch with my special guest, Brian Galke. He's America's #1 facial analysis expert. Please join me next week for 15 on Fridays with Fletch and have a safe and happy Labor Day weekend.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks.